Hi, shalom, friends. Not every one of us is able to read Hebrew or speak Hebrew, but even the most perhaps secular of us have heard certain Hebrew words which we immediately know what it means and we respond accordingly. You all heard of shalom, of course, but I would say one of the very frequently used words, which often has positive connotations, is the word LChaim, to life. And of course, those of us that have watched Fiddler on the Roof, LChaim, 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 everyone knows LChaim is a toast to life. But when you think about it just for a moment, in Hebrew, the word life is chai. But we don't say l'chai, to life. We use the word l'chaim. And actually, the extra yud and mem, which is at the end of the word, makes it plural. So essentially, when you say to life, you're really saying to life, but more than one type of a life. Most of us just say l'chaim. But in technically speaking, you're wishing more than one life. Now, how could that be? I mean, we're only alive once. So according to some, the interpretation is, you're a good-natured individual. You want your friend or companion to have life. So you wish him a duality. Life in this world, and when the time comes, to continue living in the world to come. So there's actually two lives, life on earth and life after earth. Of course, we're not going to tell that to the person, so we just give one blessing of life, but in a plural form, which includes both. This I did not see it being written, but perhaps l'chaim also refers to the one that's giving it. Because after all, living alone is no fun without companionship. So you say l'chaim, to life, almost indirectly, I wish you life, but indirectly, I hope to be around to celebrate the life with you. Maybe. But I have a suspicion that there's more to be read into the word l'chaim, and I'll share with you my thought, and that is that l'chaim refers to, I wish you a multifaceted life. Not a one-dimensional life, but more than one life. You see, we understand the preciousness of life, and with that comes a bittersweet realization that as we age, some of the pleasures of life seem to be minimized or even denied from us. So the person who enjoyed beverage can't drink as much, used to like to eat and experiment with different exotic foods, cannot tolerate it. The person that loved to do mountain climbing and all kinds of extreme sports cannot do that anymore. Some people cannot hear as well, cannot speak as well, cannot see as well. And essentially, looking at it from a bird's eye view, life could get a little bit sad. It's as if we reach the zenith where we're young and we're able to absorb all of the world is mine. And little by little, you begin to realize that life is really very temporary. So you're drinking a beverage with your friend, and you say, my friend, I want to wish you chai. I want to wish you life. And he's thinking, that's nice, thank you, but it's really very temporary. There's a different part of us which functions completely different, and that is the spiritual part of life, the non-material part of life, such as love, hate, fear, emotions, and on a higher level, such as thought, intellect, creativity. And interesting enough, they don't always parallel one another. Sometimes when we're young, when we're just maturing, whether it would be 16 or 18 or maybe we're 21, we are open to all of the pleasures of the world, but we don't have the patience or the maturity to think about the meaning of life and to think about what it means to appreciate parents or companionship or a true enduring love. Life is too exciting. There's such a variety, it's a shame to waste it on one. And then as we grow a little older, and perhaps we're not as energetic, where staying up a whole night in a nightclub will exhaust us, not excite us. From the different perspective, we begin to appreciate more and more the meaning of loyalty and of devotion and of commitment. And all of us, I will not be romantic, just merely point out, all of us know, look at perhaps a happily married couple, look at your own parents, or think about it yourself. Are you the same person? Do you value the friendship of a 55-year-old looking at your friend of 20, 30 years? Don't you value him differently than you were when you were 18 years old playing basketball with your best friend? A different form of friendship. It's really deep. It really has depth. There's a perspective. How beautiful it would be if we could somehow put these two things together. The physical life together with the non-material life. If they could only go together, hand in hand, right and left. That's what we mean when we say LChaim. I wish you a life not only where you could eat pizza and cottage cheese, not only where you could run a mile, but I wish you a life of where you could also have understanding and discernment, where you could have a sense of appreciation of art, of beauty, of life itself. Interesting enough, not only can they coincide, but there is a way in which you're able to bring the two together. Actually, there are many forms. I'll share with you just one. And I'll introduce it with an anecdote which actually happened. I don't know exactly where and who, but it is said about a rabbi who was a very, very popular fellow, and he had a lot of community projects that he had to fundraise for. And in his community, there were actually two families, but very similar in their economic bracket. Healthy, well-to-do, not extravagantly, very nice people. And he calls in one fellow, and he says, we're expanding the Hebrew school, we have to hire another 2 teachers, we really are short, we're trying to raise $50,000. I know that you're a member, I know that you're charitable, perhaps you could participate. He said, sure. And he took out his checkbook and he wrote out a $6,000 check, which was not only a substantial donation, but the rabbi was surprised because he didn't think that in his economic bracket that he should actually be giving so much. So he said, Frank, this is beautiful. I'll give you his Hebrew name, Ephraim. This is really nice, but are you sure you could afford it? I mean, I didn't expect such a large donation from you. Is there anything that I should know about? Is there a reason for this? He said, I'll tell you the truth, Rabbi. I'm now in my 50s, and I'm beginning to get a little bit anxious about what will be after I die. You never know, he says. I have friends that have died of heart attacks. So I think about mortality. And it occurred to me, if I go up to heaven tomorrow, my good deeds are not that many. And I'm actually worried about that. So I figure, let me give as much money as I can towards goodness. So in case I die, at least I'll have what to present to the heavenly court. I'm actually frightened of dying. That's why I'm giving you the money. And the rabbi listened. That very same day, he called in another gentleman, called him Yaakov or Jake, and he says, Jake, and gives the same spiel. It's a soft sell. It's the truth. We have a school, we're expanding it, we need the teachers. Can you participate? I know you're a loyal member. And he says, sure. And he takes out a checkbook and he writes out a check for $50. And the rabbi looks at it and he says, Jake, every single donation is very valuable, but I have to confess, I think a person like you should be a little bit more generous. I mean, $50 is wonderful, and God will bless you for it, but I just thought that something more substantial is respectable for you. She said, Rabbi, I got to tell you, I would like to do it, but I'm in my 50s, and I'm worried about certain things, and I realized that I'm not going to be able to work all my life. So I'm going to take retirement, let's say at 62 or 65, and then how am I going to support myself? I might live to 80 or even 90. I have another 35 years. So I don't know if I could really spend the money or invest the money in charity. So I decided to cut down on my charity so I could build up my retirement account. Rabbi just listened. Later on, he shared this story with a close friend without mentioning the names. And he said, it was an amazing thing. Frank, or Ephraim, the first fellow, he was frightened of death. The second fellow, he was actually frightened of living. Every day of life brought him closer to the realization of, I might not have what I need. So every day actually became more and more anxious. And then he said, Riley, I believe God is good. I think he's going to preserve both of them from what they fear most. So the first fellow who's frightened of dying and therefore is giving a lot of charity, my suspicion is God's not going to want him to die so quickly because he's frightened of it. And the other fellow who's frightened of living, he's worried, how will he support himself when he's 82? Maybe God will be good. Maybe he won't reach 82, so he won't have to deal with it. Now you might read into this a wry humor, but when you think about it, there's a real truth to this. What kind of a life is worth living? A life that diminishes every day? A life that, as it progresses, it brings you more anxiety? Why would you want to live such a life? Or why would you ask God for such a life? On the other hand, a life which is filled with value. Every day, something valuable, substantial, significant can be accomplished. I don't have to be the person that could play basketball for 6 hours. I don't have the koyach. It's true, I doze in the middle of the day. I don't have the energy I used to. But I certainly am capable of making phone calls, of greeting my grandchildren, of sharing my Torah of knowledge, being available just to listen, to be of use. Those are qualities and skills that you actually get later in life, or perhaps simultaneously with life, but it's from a perspective of distance and maturity. So friends, I wish you l'chaim, to life, l'chaim, a physical life, a life filled with joy and good health, a spiritual life filled with meaning and significance, and I say it in the same word and in the same l'chaim. Shalom.